Hello and welcome back, and if you're watching this video it means that there's a good chance that you're either on the verge of or about to click the buy button on the TS-253D, 453D or 653D. The 53D series from QNAP that arrived in spring 2020 is still particularly popular even now at the end of 2021. But a number of you who have seen this device maybe on a number of sales at the likes of Black Friday, Prime Day, end of year sale or anything are still wondering, is it worth taking the plunge on it? Is there better things out there? Are you buying an old model when it might be better to sit on the fence and wait a little bit longer? And that's what we're going to do in today's video. We're going to talk about the hardware, the software, and ultimately help you decide whether this NAS has still got its place and deserves your data here at the end of 2021. So let's get straight into it. What do we like about this device? Well, when it first arrived on the scene last year, has to be said that even then, in spring 2020, it did have pretty much better hardware than any of the SMB small medium business or prosumer tier of devices out there, from the likes of the Synology DS920, from the likes of Acer, you know, the likes of TerraMaster, any of them out there. It was kind of giving you the best value for money out there. Now, a lot of that hardware can be immediately shown to you. First and foremost, it was a 2.5 GBE NAS. It's got two 2.5 GBE ports on it, while still arriving at the same price as 1 gigabit Ethernet for pretty much every brand. Right now, at the time of recording, when there are no sales on this device, the going rate for this on average, to compare it against whatever price you're looking at, is about 500 nicker for the 4-bay, and we're just going to look at the 4-bay NAS, not the 2 or the 6. So it's £500 UK, it's around $550 to $600 US, about 900 Australian dollars. It's about 600 to 650 there in Europe, depending if you average it out across France and Germany and Italy and stuff like that. And then finally in Canada, about $700 to $750 Canadian. So whatever price you're looking at for the 4-bay, that should give you some idea of how good discount that should be. But even now, at the end of 2021, the hardware inside this is still better than most of its contemporaries out there. Now, it's not just that 2.5 GBE across 2 ports at the same price as everyone, and of course by everyone, I mean Synology, have at 1 GBE. But it's the fact this device is quite scalable with a PCIe slot there, and I'm sorry the plate is missing off the top of that because I've used it so much. That PCIe slot on there allows you to add 10 gigabit Ethernet, add more Ethernet ports, add more USB ports, add a Wi-Fi 6 card, add 5 GBE, add all manner of supported PCIe upgrade cards, including internal performance upgrade cards like M2 SSD upgrade cards, like this one over here, which allows you to add both a 10 gigabit Ethernet port and a 10 GBE port there. So again, there's a lot of scalability and a lot that you can do with the device in its system life. QNAP have got a bunch of expansion boxes that cover 2 and 4 and 8 and bigger expansion boxes, meaning you're not limited to just the 2, the 4 or the 6 bays of the NAS that you go for there. On top of that, it's got HDMI out. That's right, it's got an HDMI port there on the rear that supports 4K at 60 frames per second with a dedicated parallel running application known as HD Station that allows you to run it independently of the NAS and therefore enjoy movies from your sofa, set up a surveillance platform with keyboard, video, mouse, KVM, as well as installing Plex Media Server and a bunch of other applications with a huge variety of third-party apps available. And we will get to that later on. On top of that, the hardware inside arriving with 4 gig of DDR4 memory and an Intel Celeron processor, the J4125. Although it's not going to exactly, break your neck in terms of performance if you're utilizing Intel Core or the like, or a Xeon, at this price point you are never going to get that kind of hardware anyway. And this device arriving with hardware transcoding on board, AES-NI encryption on board, a great floating point there, and the ability to run many, many apps is still a great bonus on this device. And then there's a little thing a lot of people overlook with this device, and that goes for the 2, the 4 and the 6 bay. It's actually quite quiet. Its chassis is kind of very compact. It's plastic all the way around, and the trays themselves are quite firmly put in there. They're plastic trays inside, but it's surprisingly quiet. Now, obviously, if you use more enterprise level hard drives, 8, 10 TB and above, or you go for like Exos drives or Ultrastar, stuff like that, then the noise of those drives is going to eke through. You just simply can't silence those. But even this 6 bay has got 2 rear fans on it. We've had this running about a metre away from this camera in the past, and very rarely do you guys hear it. It's a surprisingly quiet NAS. I'm not going to call it silent, but I will say the 53D series, compared with other desktop NASs out there, is surprisingly discreet in terms of its kind of ambient noise in your environment. And again, the 53D series is meant to be the middle of their portfolio. It's kind of stepping away from the budget end, your K series, your P series, your stuff like that. And of course, it's more affordable than the big guns there at the top, the XT series and the 77 series and stuff like that. So in terms of how it performs QNAP's own software, QTS, the latest version QTS 5, although it doesn't support ZFS because that CPU has just not got it in it, it supports all of the applications currently available with QTS 5. That includes your surveillance, your multimedia, your business, your backups, your cloud gateways and more. In fact, let's have a look at that software now. A quick look at the software when you log in to this NAS via the... A quick look at the software when you do log in to a 53D NAS from Synology does show that QTS 5 has improved a lot over its predecessors. For example, the responsiveness of the screen in general, and a lot of the applications and security have been tightened quite notably. Now, if you do go into the application, obviously the storage manager and the way things are handled, not only with remote access storage and bolted on storage from cloud and other NAS devices are pretty good, but even the storage noobs that aren't really looking at really pushing these devices to their very limits do have a lot of tools and a lot of ease of access and understanding of what's going on here. And again, if you are someone that's migrating from cloud services, the ability to bolt on cloud providers like Google Drive and adding them to your system with the appearance of localized storage, as well as taking advantage of slightly more enterprise level feeling things like iSCSI and remote level access, are all things that are available to you very early doors. The scalability of this device and what you can do with it, whether you're a home user or a business user, is actually pretty impressive. Now, if you are looking at this device for backups, for example, there is a huge number of backup tools available for you to a varied degree of usage. Most atypical users, HBS3 will be enough for them. The ability to bolt on different areas of backup routine and back up the NAS or individual files and folders to cloud devices, cloud storage, be they blob or just shared drives, as well as to other NASs remotely, USB drives and more. And if you're an Apple Time Machine user, you can go ahead and add many of them from local devices with your Mac there with Apple Time Machine, as well as utilizing USB copy buttons like the one I mentioned connected to the front, and other protocols as well. And the learning curve isn't quite as steep as you might like. Just bear in mind that because of the QNAP's notification panel and the way alerts are handled by the machine, sometimes you can feel a little bombarded by notifications, bombarded by security alerts. Now, it really does come down to what kind of user you are, whether you're overly cautious or someone that utilizes your device quite haphazardly because maybe you're utilizing particularly strict VPN or firewall rules. Now, the system does have numerous policies and counselors and recommendations it can make, as you can see here, with the firewall enabled internally, the malware remover internally, antivirus scanning constantly, and with the security checkup allowing you to do a report based on the settings you've selected, what can be changed, what can be improved upon, and even changing the security policy on the fly towards a stricter, looser one or a custom one if you choose. And again, all of that, but sometimes in the notification panel, as you can see here, you will get a lot of alerts that can appear more intimidating than they are. In the case of this system, when I was restarting this device, I restarted it a little bit too haphazardly when I was doing a UPS video a while ago. Consequently, it would be very easy to be fantastically intimidated by all of this when really I know what the error is. Now, again, that is then being overly cautious, which a number of you may applaud. And again, with remote level access and so many different kinds of process, once again, from that bolting of network or remote storage to even more enterprise level stuff with QObjects using Amazon S3 and the like, as well as BoxSafe for those of you taking advantage of Google Workspace or Office 365 Online. Even the VM backups with hypervisors like VMware and Hyper-V, there's something there for you too. And switching back to the home users, you've got the likes of Plex Media Server, you've got the likes of multimedia tools on this device in the form of Photo Station, Music Station, and more. So again, lots of tools to enjoy your multimedia, support of a DLNA media server plugin if you choose, and arguably the best AI-powered photo recognition tool available on any NAS platform that covers not only facial recognition and locational data, but with automated thing recognition, really taking the hassle out of archiving and cataloging and referencing and searching, decades of digital photos with the AI recognizing the content of things. Again, not just faces, but recognizing items and locations too. All of that built in, all with the safe and secure knowledge that sharing files, checking the background information of files and accessing them, be it via the web browser or mobile applications, incredibly easy with all of that lovely scraped metadata, getting lots of information on the photos as you take them, and with numerous abilities to share files via a local area network or remotely over the internet, with now enhanced provisions in place with regards to remote access. There's a lot to be said for it. And again, if you're a surveillance user, with 8 camera licenses for that QVR Pro application, the ability to add USB cameras, even low-level AI-powered photo surveillance as well with QVR Face, which again, you can take advantage of adapters to improve the performance, because I think that would push that Intel Celeron processor a little hard, but still nonetheless, for what you're paying here, you are getting a lot of features and functionality. And although it may appear to have a slightly steeper learning curve than what you see from the likes of Synology there, I do think it is a much more customizable package. And again, that customization goes one step further when you look at applications like Multimedia Console, a fantastically simple idea that no other brand has seemingly done. Multimedia Console allowing you to effectively control from a single vantage point all of the indexing of your system, and that goes down to thumbnail generation, that goes down to transcoding, but ultimately giving you the ability to tell the apps where to search and where not to search for their relevant files, not the other way around as handled by other NAS providers out there. One thing you may have noticed while going through this video is as I flick between all of these windows, there's been the odd delay, and I've got to say, and I will touch on this at the end of the video, that's one of the areas where I think QNAP's QTS5 platform can sometimes struggle when you multitask, quite fast. And if you want to do 2 to 3 things, the system will do it incredibly well. But the minute you start trying to do multiple applications all at once, it can lead to a little delay in the background. Now, this can be countered with SSD cache, and this can be countered in a number of smaller ways. But for example, if you were running a virtual machine or an Ubuntu Linux VM, now bear in mind again, you can download VMs for free directly onto this NAS from within these applications. But if you run that, and then maybe you run the HDMI output as well with all of those tools as well, you may find the rest of the system will be sluggish. Now, it's easy to say that's because of memory and CPU utilization, fine. But there's also the fact that QTS runs at its best when you're doing a small handful of things at the same time and not trying to multitask 5 to 10 things at once. On this system, at least. When you go to more powerful NASes, particularly the ZFS equipped systems, this becomes far less a limitation. But just bear in mind, if you're looking at the 2, 4 or 6 bay 53D series NAS, that as long as you stick within a small paddock of tasks at any given time, you're going to be fine. So as you can see, this system does do a lot, but it's all about how much you expect out of it, and not so much being realistic, but understanding where limitations can be on this device, because it's not always going to be good. No NAS is perfect, no bit of kit is. In terms of hardware limitations, I've got to say, one of the things that you may not like about this device that may make you remove your finger from the buy button and hover over to the remove is the fact that as good as that PCIe slot is on this device, the PCIe architecture of this NAS across the 53D series isn't fantastic, because the CPU inside has only so much resources known as CPU lanes, and within the chipset, the kind of way things are laid out, these have to be given out to certain features, the HDMI port, the 2.5 GBE, the USB ports, and so there's only a finite amount of resources left. The result is that although the 2-bay device, which has got less of its resources being spread out, has a PCIe Gen 2 x 4 slot, which allows the system to have up to 2,000 megabytes per second throughput between a connected card and the internal system. The 4 and the 6 bay, on the other hand, even though it supports cards like this that are both NVMe SSD and 10 GBE on board, that PCIe slot inside there only provides up to 1,000 megabytes per second connectivity between the connected card and the system, because it's PCIe Gen 2 x 2. Now, on the face of it, 1,000 megs, who cares? That's great. If I'm putting in a 10 GBE card, woohoo! 10 GBE card, 10,000 megs, 1,000 megabytes per second, 1,000 megs from the card into the system, great. But if you start using M2 SSD upgrade cards and stuff like that, a lot of those SSDs, even some of the older Gen 3 x 4 SSDs out there, provide 2,000 to 3,000 megs, which will then be bottlenecked onto that 1,000 meg slot there. So you've got to know that before you pull the trigger if you're thinking of utilizing this for like 10 GBE editing. Know that although you can get 10 GBE on here with a card, if you put a 2-port card in there, if you put a combo card or an mSATA card, an NVMe SSD upgrade card in there, there's a bit of a bottleneck there outside of just one 10 GBE port. Another thing worth remembering, of course, is QNAP have had a bit of a bumpy road these last 12 to 18 months. It would be remiss not to at least consider the fact that there's been a couple of times where they have been the target for kind of nefarious individuals that are trying to break into their system. Now, QNAP aren't alone in this. Let's face it, the bigger you are, the larger the target there is on your back. Look at cloud providers, look at instant messaging services, look at your internet service provider. All of these are companies that are constantly being bombarded by hacking attempts and intrusions and malware and more, and then it's a question of rolling up your updates. And I think QNAP isn't quite firm enough about their updates to the end users, or maybe preventing certain services from running without the latest upgrades, something we've seen on the likes of Xbox and PlayStation and stuff like that, where they won't let you access some online services without updating to the latest firmware. Yet it's rigid, and arguably there's an argument for both sides, and not everyone's going to agree on this, but we can't ignore the fact that QNAP have had a couple of security snafus because of those intrusions and ransomware attacks by people online, that perhaps people aren't as satisfied as they could have been in that 18 months. It looks like they're all rolled up, but let's not get forgetful now, shall we? And of course, as shown there in the software when we went through it, it does everything it says it will, but if you try to do too much at any one time, the system will try to do it all at once, and it will spread itself way too thinly. And I think QTS could stand to do a better job of putting jobs in a good order, but at least allow you to line those jobs up, not just let the end user who's clicking wildly, installing 15 things at once, to expect all 15 of these things to happen at the same time. So again, where the limitations live in this box, again, the 2, the 4 or the 6 bay device, a lot of those limitations can be wildly avoided or completely never even acknowledged by the end user if the end user is just aware or keeps perspective about how they deal with the NAS. Not all of them. Things like that PCIe upgrade slot there will bum some people out, and maybe QNAP could be a little louder about that. But on this device, if you see it on sale right now, it's still one of the best NASes they've ever put out at that price point. But the A series and the B series that came before it, and indeed the Pros all the years before, this has been the best balance we've ever seen from the brand to try and juggle all of that hardware. So again, yes, there'll probably be better and newer units next year in a refresh of this series, as happens every 2 to 2.5 years, but they're going to cost more, they're going to arrive in a while, and you've got to weigh up just how much better they're going to be compared to how much time they're going to take and how much more that unit's going to cost. Me personally, if you ask my recommendation, I would still recommend the 53D series if you're looking at it on Black Friday, Prime Day, some sort of January sale, or you're getting a bit of a bargain. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you did, click like. It helps me understand what I'm doing right in these videos and make each video better than the last. Also, I've linked to an article where I talk about this NAS and whether it's still worth buying, with far more information than we've covered in this video for you to follow, so do check that out. Click subscribe if you want to learn more, and if you are watching this video because of some sales during Black Friday again or Prime Day or whatever, I will be covering those through on this channel as I look and find good deals for you guys and throw them out to you just to let you know they're out there. But thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time.